So, so today we are going to look into some important concepts related to uh, atheism, like how atheism is dealt with and uh, how it is described in the Gita. So yesterday we have discussed some of the characteristics of the divine, like how divinity is described, how God is described, how powers of God are described. So that is something we have discussed yesterday. Uh, Today we are going to look into uh, the description of atheism, like how this concept of atheism is being described, and how basically it is getting discouraged. So the Vedic principle or the Upanishadic principle is a theistic principle. So it basically has strong foundation in theism. That means there is a conception of the creator or the divine being or the supreme person, and so any philosophy or any contradicting basically understanding which negates the existence of divine, it is discarded, it is discouraged. That's what we are going to see again very objectively. What is the conclusion given? What are the discussions given regarding atheism? And in certain ways, it is also seen as basically linked with several other negative factors. Like we will see that there are certain verses related to corruption as well. There are certain verses related to crime as well. So all these phenomena like crime, corruption, atheism, they are being linked, and it is establishing some link within all the underlying mentality. So, whereas means the underlying message is that if there is a notion of the divine, if there are people who understand that the life is just not this single life, but there is a continuity, there is life, there is death, there is rebirth, there is this cycle of karma. So everybody, whatever action they do, ultimately it will come back to them. Whatever activities they do, they will get their result. So if they understand it, then most of the negative things that we see in the society, like crime, corruption, etc., will also not happen. People will be more sensitive or more careful about this. But if they say that okay, there is no afterlife, I mean, this is the only single life we have. There is no superpower. There is no person who is in control. There is no karma. There is no rule of karma. So in that case, the propensity to do crime also goes up. Means the propensity to just act for our own self, our own selfish purposes, that goes up. And when we are acting for gratifying our own self, we don't care what happens to others. We may be ready to transgress laws and regulations. We may be ready to hurt others. We may be ready to commit heinous crimes just to gratify ourselves, gratify our desires, gratify the demands of our mind and body. So that is what is being discussed over here. Let us see one by one what does it say. So this is the 16th chapter, and the title of this chapter is basically divine and demoniac qualities. So there are characteristics given over here for two kinds of people. One category is for those who are within the divine category, means those who are cultivating good qualities, and the other categories is those people who are having bad qualities or negative inclinations. So, of course, the name may look very extremes, like divine and demoniac, but ultimately it is positive and negative. That some people may have inclination towards positive qualities. They may inherit or they may develop positive qualities, whereas some others are more inclined towards negative. They are nurturing negative qualities, negative characteristics in personality, negative thought process, etc. So these two things are being discussed over here. So in this context only, later theism and atheism is being discussed. That the concept of atheism is being described as a negative quality. That means demoniac quality. Now, again, these are two extreme things. So nobody should get offended that okay, if I am atheist or if I am not believing in God or if I am agnostic, means I am being called a demon. So that is not the objective. Objective is that okay, means what is the interpretation here? Means there is some positive weightage being given to the concept of theism, whereas it is being said that if you are having if your attitude is very self-centered and you are just focusing on your own selfish ends, your own selfish purposes, your whole existence is about gratifying your own self at the cost of everyone else, so then you are definitely a negative person. You are a burden on the earth. So that is the kind of scheme given. So it's not just about believing in God or worshiping God, but we have to look at the total picture. That okay, a person who basically does not believe in any higher principle, does not believe in the concept of service, concept of contribution, the law of karma. Basically, he is just after gratifying his own body and mind and ready to hurt others, ready to create nuisance in the society, ready to create nuisance in the environment. So that kind of person is definitely being regarded as a demon. So that is the overall concept over here. So again, I would say don't no need to get offended because just because of lack of faith in God, somebody is being called demon. That is not the fact. Let us just go through one by one, and then we'll see what is the statement. So first here in the beginning, the divine qualities are being discussed. That means what are the qualities of a person who is having divine characteristics, or at least trying to elevate himself or herself, trying to go towards higher goal, trying to basically improve his personality, improve his qualities. So here we can see what are the qualities given. If you look at the English translation, Abhayam, the first all these three verses are basically giving the divine qualities. So first one is Abhayam Sattva Shamsuddhir Jnana Yoga Visthatai Dhanam Damasya Yagyascha Swadhyaya Tava Arjavam. So here the translation is given. Abhayam means fearlessness. It's not having too much worry, too much fear, too much anxiety. So obviously, once you have more control over your mind, you will not be fretting all the time. So you will not be too much afraid, too much scared about different problems. You will try to solve the problem. You will try to look at the problem objectively. But once we have a good control over mind, definitely we have abhayam. We are not scared. We are not fearful. We are not agitated all the time. And also, it has some other connotation. Also, abhayam means fearlessly pursuing the path of truth or the path of dharma. So whatever others say, whatever others do, means we should not get afraid. We should pursue the right path. That is also abhayam. Sattva samshuddhi. Sattva samshuddhi means elevating yourself. So this elevation concept we have discussed many times, right? So elevating ourselves from the level of body and mind, and trying to come at the level of the self, and trying to become the controller of the body and the mind. This is very, very core, and we have repeated it many, many times because it is very important. So that is the concept of sattva samsuddhi, means elevating yourself, purifying ourselves by elevating us from the lower level, detaching ourselves from the tendencies of the body and mind, becoming observers of the mind. Normally what happens, we fall prey to tendencies of body and mind. So elevating ourselves from there through mind control, through practice of yoga, that is sattva samshuddhi. And third one is jnana yoga visthatai. Jnana yoga visthatai means cultivation of knowledge, acquiring right knowledge through the study of Vedanta, through the study of Upanishads. For example, if you are trying to acquire the right knowledge and right understanding, that is also a divine quality of people who are having good intentions, trying to make improvement in ourselves and also trying to help others in acquiring the right information. So this is about Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga means a process of yoga, a process of sadhana in which we try to acquire good knowledge, the adhyatmic knowledge, and try to elevate ourselves. So the Jnana theoretical study, just like what we are doing right now, that theoretical study also helps us in basically strengthening our sadhana, strengthening our yoga, strengthening our meditation, strengthening our self-control. So cultivation, acquisition of this Jnana, acquisition of the knowledge, what is right, what is wrong, the true perception, where is, where are we getting entangled, how we should get detached, how we should elevate ourselves, all that is a process of Jnana. So that, of course, cultivation of that Jnana by reading good things, by listening to good topics, by discussing good topics, all that basically helps. Then the next line is Danam Damasya Yagyascha. Danam means charity. So that helps us in purifying our consciousness also. So if somebody is too selfish, too self-centered, then through the process of dan, he can reduce that tendency. So selflessly, if we are giving the charity, that basically makes us more selfless. That okay, we have earned this money, but for other people's good, we are giving it in charity. That is a selfless act. That is just another step, another method towards becoming more selfless, more or basically less self-centered, and more contributing towards the society, towards the nation, etc. So dan is a very important process. Again, in Vedanta, dan is given a very high value. Dhamma means self-control. Again, we have seen self-control is very important. Entire sixth chapter is about self-control, and self-control means several things. So we will discuss, the different components of self-control, and we have discussed briefly the concept of brahmacharya also. That is also about self-control. So having the process of control on body and mind through various things like what do we eat, when do we get up, when do we eat, timing of sleeping and eating, and also what do we speak. We should not speak harsh things. We should not speak bad things. So the way we basically deal with others, what do we read, what do we see, what do we watch, what do we think even. You should not even think of bad things about others or things which degrade us. So all that is a process of dhamma, self-control, controlling the thought process, controlling the body, controlling the mind and its activity. So this process is also being regarded as divine. Why? Because it is a positive thing. It basically elevates us towards positive direction. And then yajna. Yajna, we have also seen what is the concept of yajna in Vedanta and in Gita. Yajna means activities which are performed for the overall good, sacrificing our own self-interest, our own selfish goals, our own gratificatory goals. But rather than gratifying our own self, focusing on the higher objective of fulfilling our duty in the best possible way, contributing our best possible effort in whatever direction we are working. That is yajna. So yajna doesn't mean that just sitting in a havan kund and doing swaha. That is not the yajna being talked about. Yajna, the general concept of yajna is something related to sacrifice. That means we are basically we are acting for higher good. We are not acting just to gratify our mind, emotion, ego, body, senses, etc. We are acting just to discharge our duties in the best possible way, so that we can contribute to the overall good of whatever organization we are in, whatever part of the society we are in. That is yajna. And that basically takes away a lot of negative things: worry, fear, envy, jealousy, anxiety. Those things are gone, and we are working, focusing on our duty, our contribution. That is a positive way of working. And then we have swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means, again, we have seen this in the earlier shloka also. That means reading good things, contemplating, meditating on good topics, meditating on good lessons. That is swadhyaya. So, as we have said, reading is very important. The repeated reading of good text is very important. The Gita means if you read, once and after that you are done, that does not help you a lot. So it is a matter of daily practice, because Gita is about psychology. So it basically helps us in developing positive psychology, and our mind needs that feedback continuously, regular basis. Otherwise, we will lost again. So because of the tendencies, it will again pull us in all the wrong directions. Therefore, Swadhyay is very important. Regular basis reading, revisiting the text, reading the text is very important. Therefore, many people read the Gita daily basis. For example, if you initially develop the practice, you may read the English verses also, but a little bit practice can also help you in easily getting comfortable with the Sanskrit verses as well. It is not very difficult. Gita in Sanskrit is very simple. So it is very easy to basically pick up by little bit of practice, by listening to the recorded audio, etc. And then you can daily practice, you can practice, you can recite. That basically helps us in getting reminders. So Raswadhyay is another very important thing. And Arjavam means simplicity, not too much show off, not trying to show off that okay, I am wealthy, I am not trying to basically live an ostentatious life, living a simple life, and trying to focus on our contributions, our activities, etc. Next line we have ahimsa, satyam, akrodha. Ahimsa means non-violence. Again, this is again people may ask that okay, we are talking about battle and how ahimsa fits in. So ahimsa here means when you are when there is a requirement for ahimsa for the righteousness, then of course we have to do it. For example, in the battlefield, the other side is creating havoc. They are on the side of adharma. Therefore, for that, ahimsa is justified. If somebody attacks the country, we can't sit back and say that we have to follow ahimsa. So for the right cause, ahimsa is permitted. But in general life, common life, definitely ahimsa is being promoted. For example, this may apply to the food that we eat. So this can be seen as the promotion of vegetarianism. That okay means if you are eating food, we should try to minimize the hinsa. So animals, for example, they are sentient beings. They have sensation of pain, pleasure. They have emotions. So they are very developed living beings. As compared to plants, the degree of pain, etc., that they feel is huge. It is just like maybe little less than human beings. The sensitivity overall is almost similar to human beings. So as compared to the plant world, the animal world is much more sentient. It has a central nervous system, it has the brain, it has emotion, it has all the things that we have. And therefore when we kill animals, that is violence. That is a much bigger violence than killing plants. So that way we can say that okay means this is a justification of ahimsa in food habits. We should try to curtail, we should try to minimize our dependency on animal food or meat, etc., because it is involving hinsa, just for satisfying our own sense of taste, for satisfying our own sense of uh, palate and pleasure of tongue. We are killing animals and we are eating their meat. So this is seen as justification of ahimsa in the process of eating. Likewise, there are many other fronts. Ahimsa means when we are talking to someone or dealing with someone, all there can be hinsa in many ways. It's not just physical hinsa. You can also have verbal, right? So if you want to hurt someone, physically hurting just hurt once, but it may be possible to basically hurt somebody mentally, emotionally, psychologically in a much more severe way, and that hurt remains with them for a long time. So that is also hinsa. So hinsa can be done through action also, hinsa can be done through words also. All these things count as hinsa. Even if you are thinking unfavorably about someone, means trying to think bad things about someone, oh, this person should die, he's so evil, he's so bad, he should die. So that mental thought is also hinsa, although we are not doing it to that person in reality, but it may ultimately translate into something. So that is also hinsa. So action, thoughts, words, all these things, the concept of hinsa is basically rejected. We should practice ahimsa of thought, ahimsa of words, ahimsa of action. Likewise, satyam, truthfulness, definitely, there's nothing to be explained here. Sticking to the path of truth, minimizing, the need of telling lies. And in general, satya is a bigger concept, following the path of truth, the right path. And then krodha, satyam akrodha. Satyam, after that, there is akrodha. Satyam akrodha. Akrodha means lack of anger. So again, if we are self-controlled, if we basically if we control our mind and thoughts, then the possibility of controlling anger also increases. So we have seen this earlier also. In the second chapter, we have seen some verses where the anger is being described as an outcome of desire. So kamat krodho vijayate, krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha spritati viprama. You remember that. So there we have seen that desire, if your desires are not fulfilled, then it leads to anger. So if we are having control over our mind and if we are having control on our thought process, it also automatically leads to control over anger, which is being regarded as a divine quality. And then krodha tyaga. Tyaga means giving up. The decision, the determination of giving up undesirable things. So, for example, if somebody is addicted to drugs, or somebody is addicted to smoking, so he has to be determined to give up that bad habit. That let me give up that wrong thing because it is hurting my health, it is hurting my well-being. So that is the process of tyaga. Tyaga means giving up wrong things, giving up things which are harmful or obstructions in our progress. So that is the process of tyaga. Even practice wrong practices, wrong habits, wrong components of our life, which are hurdles in our path. So that has to be given up. It is the process of tyaga. So that requires determination. And then we have shanti. Shanti, again, that is very, uh, very well-known term, and it basically means peacefulness, equanimity, stability of mind. So those things we have discussed in detail. Once you control your mind and elevate yourself, then Shanti is an outcome. Automatically, you get there. Daya, Apaishunam is basically non-envy. So not having envy, jealousy towards others. So that is Apaishunam. Shantir Apaishunam. Apaishunam means having basically having complete I would say rejection of envy, hatred, negative attitude towards others. That is Apaishunam. So why the negative things happen? Why envy comes? Because we are desiring to get similar things, or we are feeling bad that that person is achieving something or having something which is very good, and I have desire to get that. I am not getting that, or that other person should not get it. So that kind of negative things come. Again, the root cause is desire. So the root cause always is desire and dvesh. Remember last time we discussed the two root causes being mentioned: ichha, dvesh, ichha, dvesh. These two things are always there. So in all these negative qualities, ultimately you will see that the root cause is either ichha or dvesh. So that mantra is very simple. Ichha, dvesh, tamuthena, dandvamohena, bharata. So these two things, ichha and dvesh, is always present. So dvesh leads to envy. Apaishunam means lack of envy. Then daya means mercy. That is again, having mercy, having kindness, practicing kindness towards others, empathizing with others, understanding that they other beings are also like us. They also have life like us. They also want to be happy. Nobody wants to be distressed. Nobody wants to be hurt. Nobody wants to be agitated. So understanding and empathizing with others and seeing everyone, even animals, like our own self. Just like we don't want to hurt ourselves, or we don't want to be hurt in any way, or don't want negative things. Likewise, we should also try to be we also should try to empathize with others and avoid hurting others in any way. That is daya. Then bhuteshu means all living beings. Daya towards all living beings. Daya bhuteshu. So it is not that daya only towards human beings, but daya bhuteshu means towards all living beings we should have daya. Now we can say that in the animal world there is so much cruelty. A lion eats deer, and there is a complete food chain. Jivo jivasya bhojanam. So one living entity is killing other living entity and eating. So they don't have daya. They don't have all these higher principles, right? So this is only in human beings. So daya may be there. Means of course daya is always in animals. Also, you will find many times you will see daya is there, but there is the food chain also. This question comes that in animals there is this food chain, and there is always uh, bigger animal or a carnivorous animal eating a smaller animal, herbivorous animal. And there again, it is bound by nature. So nature has certain rules, it has certain structure. They are bound by their nature. So if they are hungry, they are forced to basically take others' life and eat. So they don't kill, or they don't kill others for hatred, envy, other kinds of problems. So they only kill for eating. Means they are having no other option. That is the nature that they have got. Lion cannot eat grass. So they have certain nature. By force of nature, they are forced to basically kill and eat. So human beings kill for some other reasons. It is not just to satisfy hunger. They have other reasons to kill. So that's why this concept of daya is very important for human beings. That is good for basically elevating ourselves. And then Mardvam, Hira Chapalam. Again, these are basically Achapalam means having equanimity, having stability, not being very, I would say, restless and agitated. So all these things are divine qualities. And next line, you can see there are some more words given. Teja, Kshama, Dhriti, Shaucham. Kshama means tolerance, forgiveness. Dhriti means determination. So Kshama again means if we are having Kshama, then of course we will be uh, ready to forgive others, will not be too agitated in mind. We will not keep grudges against others. That is also very important. So keeping grudges in mind, that happens to be one of the most, I would say, damaging things for our consciousness. So if we have grudges, if we have negative memories about someone, so this person has hurt me, or he has insulted me, he has caused damage to me, he has caused loss to me. So we will have some grudges, some or the other. And if we keep reflecting on those things, it will keep agitating our mind. So this, these grudges ultimately hurt us. They agitate us. So therefore, it is always good to practice kshama. Let me forgive him. I mean, what does it, matter? Means, okay, because of some circumstances I have faced this condition. Maybe because of some circumstances he has behaved with me wrongly. So I should not carry that in my mind. Let me just delete it from my memory, because ultimately it is not useful. It is just going to cause more and more damage to me. So therefore, practicing the concept of kshama is very important. Just forgiving. So that is going to help us in being more peaceful, right? So ultimately, we want to be peaceful, joyful. So this practice of kshama is very important. Not holding grudges against others, and always trying to forgive as much as possible, so that we are peaceful, we are equanimous, we are not agitated by so many things. And then dhriti means determination. Again, determination is very important quality for elevating ourselves, for having self-control, for having mind control, for living a disciplined life, for acting, for working enthusiastically after our goals and targets. We need determination. Without determination, nothing happens. If we want to wake up early in the morning and do some meditation, that requires determination. If we want to stick to healthy food and avoid bad junk food, that also requires determination. If we want to be mindful, watchful of our thoughts, and avoid all kinds of negative thoughts coming to the mind, that also requires determination. If we want to pursue a goal, that okay, currently this is my duty, this in the organization I have been assigned a particular duty, I have to finish it by deadline, and I must deliver my best, I must deliver the best quality, I must put the best effort. That also requires determination. So determination is again very important in all aspects of our life, whether it is daily routine, whether it is our own personal care, whether it is our responsibilities and duties, professional work, dealing with others, controlling ourselves. In all these cases, determination is very important. So that's why dhriti is a divine quality, or regarded as a positive quality, having the right determination. Dhriti saucham. Saucham means cleanliness. Cleanliness means physical cleanliness as well as mental cleanliness. So saucham doesn't mean only physical cleanliness. Saucham means both mental cleanliness as well as physical cleanliness. So physically, if we are clean, we are maintaining physical hygiene. We are these days anyway. We are all using hand sanitizers and are trying to stay clean. So saucham, having the body clean, keeping the body clean is very important. Uh, Keeping our surroundings clean, keeping our homes clean, keeping our streets clean. So Saucham doesn't mean only cleanliness of body. Keeping our surroundings clean, that is also going to have effect on our consciousness, on our mind. So if you stay in a room which is very dirty and very disorganized, clothes are scattered everywhere, floor is dirty, bad smell, foul smell is coming. So if we stay in that kind of room, we can't meditate. We can't basically, have higher consciousness. It will be difficult, more difficult. Uh, Whereas if it is a very nice, neat and clean, peaceful place, then it is easier. So surroundings and that, they do have effect on us. If you are walking on street and there is the garbage piled everywhere and stinking and mosquitoes and flies and all kinds of things, it definitely has a bad effect on our thought process, on our consciousness, even for a short while. So therefore, having cleanliness, external cleanliness is important in all circumstances. And internal cleanliness, internal shauch means the mind should be controlled. We should not let bad thoughts, dirty thoughts, angry thoughts, envious thoughts, all kinds of negative thoughts come to our mind, or many kinds of negative desires that keep coming to our mind. So controlling those desires, controlling the thought, becoming the controller of thought, controller of mind, that is about internal shauch, internal cleanliness. So only having external cleanliness doesn't help. We have to practice internal cleanliness. Both these things are important. And then adroho. Adroho again means not having droho towards others. Droho means uh, negative attitude or any kind of conflict, any kind of hatred, any kind of negative, uh, relation towards others. So droh means any negative dealings with others, having hatred, envy, trying to pull down others, trying to basically hurt others, or keeping hatred towards others, thinking negatively about others. All that is droh. So we should not cultivate this practice of droh. Even if we are hurt by someone, we should say, okay, let us see. The time will tell. If somebody has done wrong with me, if it is very grave, let me take some action. Maybe I can take some legal route. But you should not get too agitated. We should not have droh towards others. So we have seen many examples of this, like the extreme case uh, when uh, when in the battle of Ramayan, when Ravan is getting killed by Lord Ram, so even till the end point, he is always equanimous. He's not that agitated. He's not so angry. Means he's killing him because he has done wrong things. But even after he's killed, or even after he's falling down, he's having, he is basically equanimous. He carried out his sanskar, and he in fact told Lakshmana to approach him and you know uh, say some good words to him, get some advice from him, and he also basically performed the sanskar of all the demons, all the rakshasas who were killed in that battle. So that shows that he doesn't really have hatred. That okay means just because you are rakshasas or you have done some crime against me, I will have too much hatred towards you. If you do wrong, definitely I will do the action that is required. But I will not be burning with hatred and anger and envy. I will maintain my balance. I will be equanimous. I will be who I am. I will not lose my control. I will do my duty. I will do my part. I will do my action which is required to win the justice. But internally, I will not have hatred. I will not have droh. I will not have lot of anger. I will be forgiving. I am ready to forgive you at every instance. So in Ramayana also, we have seen that every step Lord Ram sent his messengers. He sent Hanuman, he sent Angad several times just to convince Ravan that, okay, please return Sita and I will forgive you. But he didn't listen. So till the last moment also this quality of forgiveness is being shown, that I am not having hatred towards you. I am not willing to come and destroy your people and destroy your city, kill you. I don't have any of those hatred towards you, despite your having been done such, having done such a wrong thing towards me. That is self-control. That is basically uh, the concept of chama. That is the concept of adroho. I'm not having negative things towards you. I'm doing my duty. You have done wrong things to me, and I have to set it right. And for that, whatever duty is there, I'm doing it. But still, I'm ready to forgive you. I don't have personal grudge against you. I don't really entertain a lot of hatred against you. So that is an example where the concept of adroho is being shown. And then we have nati manita. Nati manita means na ati manita. Na ati means not very much. Manita means pride. So manita means if we are too puffed up because of our achievement or accomplishment or abilities, then we will be again trying to gratify our ego. And the moment we try to gratify our ego, we become again restless. We always try to seek gratification of the ego, conceit. So that's why it is being said, na ati manita. Don't try to gratify your ego. Don't try to be full of conceit and pride. So that is the wrong thing. That is the wrong attitude. So na ati manita. So that, because ultimately that is going to make us hankering towards pride and gratification of our pride and ego, hankering towards praise and awards and rewards and accolades and recognition. If we don't get that, then we will be depressed. This is just again mental status, right? So that's why it is being said, don't try to try to do good work, and if good things come to you, okay, accept it. Don't get too excited. So try to be an equanimity. Focus on your activities. Focus on your contribution. Don't try to be too puffed up because you have achieved something good, or don't try to get too conceited, too egoistic about your activities. And then last, it says that these are the bhavanti sampadam devim abhijatasya bharat. These are the divine qualities that which is being listed. So some of these basic qualities that we discussed, these are the good qualities that we should try to cultivate. So Mr. Manoj Sharma is saying that you should try to explain fearlessness once. So fearlessness, one thing is, we have discussed this concept of fear, right? So we have earlier also seen that through the process of yoga, we should try to control the fear. Fear comes when we are anticipating some things. We are thinking in the mind about some problem, and we are imagining that this will happen, that will happen. We are calculating. means and then rather than thinking about the solution, we are getting agitated and restless in our mind. That is fear. So fear is not going to help us. If we get overwhelmed with fear, it is not going to help us think clearly and figure out the right kind of solution to deal with the problem. So it is always good to have control over the sense of fear. If you are seeing problem, okay, we can watch, we can look at the problem, we can try to think about the solution. We should not get too agitated and too afraid, too scared. So that agitation will cloud our thinking. It will basically suppress our thinking capability. It will not be able to come up with the best strategy to deal with it. So we should look at the difficulties at as objectively as possible, try to deal with that, try to think of solutions, trying to seek help from others if needed. But having fear and getting overwhelmed with fear is always going to uh, hurt us. It doesn't lead to anything good. And another example that I was talking about is fear of reading, having the courage of reading the right path, the path of dharma. So you may be having a lot of wrong things happening besides you. People are doing corruption, some people are doing cheating, some people are doing crime, some people are telling lie. But we have to stick to the right path, and we should not be scared about other people, other things, other circumstances. That is abhay. That is restlessness. We have seen many examples in the society. Also, we keep seeing news that you know there is a officer who is getting transferred so many times, and he is getting demoted, and he is getting discouraged. Every few months, he has a transfer, but he's sticking to his policy. He's sticking to his honesty. He's sticking to his principle. He is not having fear. He is not getting suppressed. He is not getting scared. So that is abhay. That is also one example of abhay. So sticking to the right path, despite having challenges, despite having difficulties, despite having incentives to go towards wrong path, we are sticking to the right path, the path of dharma, the path of truth. That is also fearlessness. So these are the two things I mentioned. Mr. Devashish Day is asking that suppose somebody has a grudge on someone, try to bully whenever get a chance. How can one deal with that person? Uh, how can that how to deal with that kind of scenario? How one should deal with that person, and it cannot be avoided. So yeah, means if there is a person who is continuously bullying and he is too negative and he's trying to hurt, uh, if it is beyond a certain limit, if it is definitely beyond the limit of decency, definitely we can take help of law. So we are not saying that we will be inactive and we will just surrender and let ourselves be embarrassed and hurt all the time. So if the person not uh, if the person is not basically uh, listening to our good advice, we may try to approach him, we may try to talk to him, we may try to convey our good attitudes or good messages to him. So that way we may try to compensate. I mean, we may try to basically compensate, basically try to make that person understand and reduce his sense of envy and hatred or whatever be the reason. There are some people who are too negative, they are criminal minded, they will not listen, and they will continue with their bullying activity. So under those conditions, definitely it is our responsibility to take the right action. We may take legal action. We may approach the administration. We may approach the right kind of authority who can help us in this matter. So all those things we can do and we should do. Nobody's stopping you. But only thing is, we should not hold grudge that okay, all the time thinking about that person is doing bad to me. He should be punished and he should be killed. He should be you know. Uh, he should be getting the severest punishment. So, ourselves, we have to maintain the cool. We have to maintain the balance. So that is what is being discussed. So take the right action. That means, try to, safeguard yourself. That is definitely required. We don't want to, agitate our mind so much, or we don't want to encourage people who are criminals. So we can definitely take legal action. We can approach the right kind of authorities, but while doing so, we should not be so scared or agitated or fearful or very angry and hateful towards him. So let us think that okay, this person is because of his circumstances, because of his upbringing, because of his unfortunate surroundings that he is living in, or maybe because of his bad company, because of whatever reason, that person is negative and he is having bad attitude, he is having bad behavior. But okay, means my responsibility is to safeguard myself. If I can help that person in improving or realizing that he is doing bad, I can do that. But at least I can safeguard myself. And for that, whatever minimum is required, I will do. But I will not entertain so much hatred, envy, anger, agitation. I have to keep my balance because I have many hundred things to do. Means I should keep doing my good work. I should not really go down to his level and waste my mental energy in thinking, worrying, and getting angry about that person. That's what we are understanding. Then Mr. Mrigendra is asking, my dharma may be adharma for others. On what basis I should decide? So, if it is dharma, it cannot be adharma for others, right? So uh, if it is absolute dharma, it has to be absolute. It cannot be relative. So dharma is not something which is relative. So I don't think. I mean, I can think of an example where a person A's dharma can become adharma for others. Absolute terms, it will be ultimately one good thing. If you have some example in mind, you can probably share. So, so worship of a cow is so that is yeah, we are going into religious notion that okay means in some book it is written that you should not worship anything else and you should just worship God. And in some other tradition we have worship of statues, we have worship of idols, we have worship of vigraha, we have worship of animals also. These are cultural issues and these are traditional issues. And we have, this is not the dharma being talked about. Dharma means the higher principles. So we are not talking about rituals. We are not talking about religious practices, puja, archana. Those things can vary based on customs. What is higher principle? Non-violence is a higher principle. Non-violence is the valid dharma for everyone. All the religions will say that non-violence is good thing. You should not commit unnecessary violence. Truthfulness is dharma. Sticking to truthfulness is good thing. Honesty is a dharma. Sticking to honesty is being prescribed in all the texts. So we are talking about higher principles. We are not talking about say the rituals or the practices or the traditions. Those rituals, practices, traditions may vary. I mean, because of certain circumstances, maybe in Middle East there were certain preachers who got a certain different environment, and based on their environment, they came up with certain rules and regulations. So that is a different thing. That is a different matter. But the basic principles, underlying principle, controlling the self, not being greedy, not being driven by bodily requirements and emotions, having self-control, thinking about higher purpose, thinking about helping others, thinking about contributing well to the society, doing our duties honestly, not being too greedy, not being too angry. These things are higher principle, and this is going to be common across the religions. So we're not talking about religious principle. We're talking about the values which are common. You can't debate that. That's what I'm saying. So people who look at it as food, probably they don't have that kind of understanding. So they don't have the right knowledge, right? So if we are talking about ahimsa, and by common sense, if you understand that ahimsa is a good thing, then definitely as a higher principle, even killing chicken is a bad thing. Forget about cow. So non-violence is definitely a good thing, and everywhere is it prescribed. Even in other religions, it is prescribed. I mean, I have read some of the other texts also, and there also it is higher preference is given to vegetarian food. You should. I mean, there are other texts also which recommend that we should not kill animals unnecessarily unless there is a requirement. So if you are residing in an area where you don't have agriculture, you don't have crop, you don't have vegetation, you are only having some animals that you can kill and eat to survive, maybe that is okay. Means there is hardly any other option. If you are living in Antarctica and you don't have any other thing to eat other than fishing, then possibly you don't have an alternative. It is okay to survive. You have to do it. But if you are living in a place like India or any other place today which is globally connected, you have markets everywhere and export import everywhere. So in today's world, animal food is just luxury because we want to gratify our sense of taste, because we want to gratify our tongue. That's why we are killing that animal and eating it. There is no other reason. So nutrition can be obtained from vegetarian food without any problem. Protein and all other nutrients can be obtained in a cheaper way using vegetarian food. But those who eat non-vegetarian food, it is just because they want to gratify their sense of taste. There is no other reason, and therefore that is the lower principle. So having the practicing non-violence and practicing principle of ahimsa is definitely higher, and it is valid all throughout. Some people may not be able to practice it because they are too attached, right? So they are so attached to the sense of taste, they are not able to elevate themselves. They are not able to detach themselves from the sense of taste. So they are so engrossed that the moment we talk about abstaining from animal food, they will feel bad because they will see that this is an object of enjoyment for me and this is being stopped. I will be deprived of my object of enjoyment. Therefore, they are scared. So this is the main reason. Attachment to the body, attachment to the senses, attachment to the pleasure sensation that the mind receives. So we have attachment to all these lower things, because of which we are not able to practice the higher principle of ahimsa. That is the core reason. There is no other reason. So logically, if we think, we can very clearly understand what is higher principle, what is lower principle. Then, then there are some qualities related to negative attitude that is being discussed over here. So, what is the demoniac quality or negative qualities which can make us demoniac, right? So, for example, when we see portrayal of demons, like in TV serials or any discourse, discussions, stories, etc. So, demons are described as, being very egoistic, angry. They want to win everything. They want to occupy. They want to capture, and they want to destroy all the good things. They want to, enjoy as much as possible. They want to basically capture others' resources and enjoy themselves. This is the tendency which is shown. That's what is being discussed here also. So, dambho darpo abhimanascha. Dambho means too much pride. Dambho darpo abhiman. Dambha darpa abhiman. These are again some variations of the sense of ego, conceit, pride. So dambho means, full of pride, that this is my accomplishment, I am great, I am capable of doing this and this. That is, dambha. uh, abhiman, conceit are also related. There's going to be some niceties or some, minor differences. Darpo is again, darp means again conceit. Conceit means thinking oneself as great, uh, or basically trying to show others down, trying to look down upon others. That is darp, means giving higher value to yourself, trying to put yourself first, and trying to look down upon others. That is darp. Ego, abhiman. Abhiman means the the sense of doership, that I am the doer, I am the master, I am the boss. So that is abhiman, ego. So all these things are negative qualities. We should not have all these pride, ego, conceit. We should be humble. So humility is considered as a divine quality. Whatever position we may have, whatever resources we may have, we should be humble. That okay means by some good fortune, by our probably our good work or whatever, by good grace, we have obtained these good things. We have obtained good resources, but let us not be too proud of it, because these resources will be lost. You know, these are all fluctuating. These are all changing things. So sometimes something may be good, other times may be lost also. So we should not be too proud of these things. So there may be many reasons of pride, right? So some people may be proud of their wealth, some people may be proud of their appearance. So somebody who is slightly good looking will be too proud that okay, I am so attractive and people are getting attracted towards me. So that is also pride. Or somebody is too knowledgeable or too learned, they will be proud that okay, I have so and so degree and I have learned from this and this place. I have graduated from this and this place. Therefore, I should have respect in the family. I should have respect in the society. That is also pride. And out of pride, we may not be able to uh, do the best of our service. We are too puffed up. So pride can be because of many things, because of qualification, because of position, because of power, because of appearance, because of wealth, because of any uh, acquisitions that we may have. So we should not have pride. That is the first thing. Anger is, again, we have seen so many times, anger can let us do a lot of bad things. It can force us into crime. It can force us into very drastic actions. Therefore, anger is definitely a very bad thing. We should try to control as much as possible, because anger leads to complete delusion, and it can lead to lack of self-control, and we may end up saying bad things, doing bad things, committing crimes, committing atrocities, which we may later regret. So anger is obviously a bad thing. And those who have self-control over they have control over themselves, for them definitely anger can be subdued. So all throughout in Gita also we have mentioned anger is a bad thing we should control. Paurushyam, krodha paurushyam evaja. Paurushyam means harshness. So if somebody is too harsh, means speaking very harshly, or too rude all the time when we are talking to people, talking rudely, because ourselves we are assuming that okay, we are somebody superior, we are at a higher level, and when we are talking to somebody lower level, maybe when we are talking to a laborer or a poor person or a staff maybe who is lower in position, so we obviously, I mean, many times we acquire this sense of superiority, and we may talk to them harshly, not politely. So when we're talking to our bosses or superior, we may be very polite, and we email them also very, very carefully, so that they don't get offended. Very carefully. We'll choose our words very, very carefully when we are talking to the bosses. But when we are talking to our juniors, when we're talking to our subordinates, when we are talking to people who are below us or poorer than us, lower in capabilities, towards them our attitude will be full of conceit, paurushyam. We may be harsh towards them. We may not really, pay due respect to them, or we may not be having kind words towards them. We may be harsh, rash towards them. The paurushyam means having rash attitude, harsh attitude in speaking, in dealing with them, behaving with them. That is paurushyam. So uh, if we are not having ego, we are not having this pride, conceit, and ego, then automatically this Krodha and Paurushyam will also be under control. That's why these are all linked. These are not isolated qualities. Then Agyanam. Agyanam means lack of knowledge, lack of Adhyatmic Gyan. So no, Gyanam means one person may be PhD and he may be very expert in a certain area. But if he doesn't have knowledge about the values, doesn't have value education, doesn't know what is right and what is wrong in terms of life values, then it is Agyanam. He doesn't know the higher principles. He doesn't know, that self-control is important, being humble is important, uh, being devoid of anger, passion, ego, and all kinds of negative things is important. Having a sense of contribution towards others, having the sense of service towards others is important. So he's not aware of higher qualities. He's just puffed up with his own knowledge, and he's so conceited and he's egoistic. So that is agyan. So these are all being regarded as negative qualities, the asuri qualities or demoniac qualities. And then in the next verse is a further description which says that pravrittim cha nivrittim cha jana na vajurasura. So those who are of demoniac quality or asuric or negative qualities, they don't know what is right action, what is wrong action. So they don't know what is dharma, what is adharma. They don't have that discriminatory power. They don't have the right intelligence because they don't have knowledge. So we have seen that ultimately the gyan, the knowledge, that helps us in deciding what is right and what is wrong. That inner sense. So if we have self-control, then we can basically take correct decision, because then we have basically the access to our own self, our own conscience, our own inner self. So when we say that okay, we should ask our conscience, we should take a conscious decision. That is about having a self-control decision, right? So we should have first of all control on our mind. We should not take decisions which are driven by our lower self, our body and mental pleasure. So if we are making decisions for self-interest, for gratifying our own interest, then it is going to be wrong. So likewise, in any aspect of our life, having the right knowledge of what to do, what not to do, what is dharma, what is adharma, what is the right action, what is the wrong action, that is pravrittim cha nivrittim. Like Mr. Mrigendra asked that having non-veg food is killing cow and eating. So how do we understand whether their principle is right or our principle is right? So that's what I explained, right? So logically, if we see what is happening when we are killing a cow, how much pain, how much anxiety, how much trouble, how much agony we are causing to that cow. So if we understand that, and if we understand that we will also face the reaction of doing that, then definitely we will understand that this is not the right thing. Whether it is cow, whether it is chicken. A cow is of course more developed as compared to chicken. It is much more developed. It is having much more emotions. It is having much more developed physique as well as the mind. So definitely killing that kind of animal is definitely very very atrocious. So if we understand this principle wise, rather than taking pleasure in eating and tasting the flesh, if we understand the higher principle of kindness, higher principle of ahimsa, a higher principle of selfless action, principle of sattvic food being situated in sattva. If we know this higher principle, then automatically we will discard it. So therefore, the knowledge of what is right, what is wrong, that is important, and that is the divine quality. But here, the people who are negative, who are so basically, they are so engrossed in their bodily pleasure that they are so attached to it that even if you tell them the good things, they will be repelled because they will fear that my source of pleasure is getting lost. So they don't have any other source of pleasure. They are not able to detach themselves from the body and mind, and therefore they have not tasted higher pleasure of the self. So in sixth chapter, we discuss also out that once we detach ourselves from the lower levels of body and mind and come to the level of self, the pleasure obtained by situating ourselves at the level of self is much much higher. It is uncomparable as compared to this small temporary pleasure that we get from body. So that's what is being said in the sixth chapter all throughout, that there is a higher pleasure if you become self-controlled, if you become if you have good control over mind and body, and you always operate at the level of self, you get aligned at the level of self, then you are always happy, you are always cheerful, you are always blissful, and that pleasure is orders of magnitude higher than all the temporary pleasure that we get from our body parts. That is what is being recommended. But those who are very negative, they will not be able to perceive that. They will not even put efforts towards rising themselves above the body and mind, and they will get pulled by the body and mind all the time. So that is the reason why they don't know what is right and what is wrong. They are so attached to the lower functionalities, and therefore they don't know na saucham na pichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. Na saucham means they don't know what is cleanliness, what is external cleanliness, what is internal cleanliness. So saucham was a divine quality, but those who are in negative attitude, demoniac quality, they don't know what is saucham. Mental cleanliness, external cleanliness, internal cleanliness, don't know. Napi chacharo, napi cha acharo. Acharo means behavior. They don't even have the right behavior. They will behave wrongly with others. They will have negative, basically, behavior is also full of anger, pride, rudeness, rough behavior. That is also getting reflected. So all the internal qualities also coming in their achar. Achar means external conduct. Your conduct is also not positive. Conduct is all kinds of nonsense. So that achar means your daily conduct, your interaction with the external world, interaction with people. So that is also going to be corrupted. So you will be doing corruption, you will be doing all kinds of things. So they don't know. So they may be doing corruption and they may not feel the guilt because they don't understand how wrong it is, and they are going to feel the reaction of this. That is achar. They are not having the right achar. And satyam, of course, satya is the quality of the divine, and they are having lack of satya. Na satyam tesha vidyate. So they will take shelter of deceit, cheating, corruption, all kinds of negative things, lies. So they are prone towards these things. So these are the negative qualities that is being discussed. So let us stop today. So here I have discussed the divine and demoniac qualities, and again these qualities are important and useful to reflect upon. Uh, I have a lot of interesting things in the coming verses, but again today time is up. Uh, the next verse talks about atheism, like what is the concept of atheism and how it is being discussed. So today again I have elaborated only the qualities, and these are all important qualities. I have tried to describe as per my understanding. Next we will discuss the concept of atheism, very clearly described. What is the concept of atheism? What is the concept of corruption and crime? All these things are very, very elaborately described in the subsequent verses that we will try to touch upon tomorrow. So these are also very important because they are dealing with the psychology. What is the psychology of crime? What is the psychology of corruption? So that psychology is being discussed. So that part, we will discuss maybe tomorrow. And ultimately, it is all about the attitude and the psychology. Gita is all about psychology. So when we talk about Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, it is all about the psychological process. How do we get the right kind of psychology, right kind of attitude, right kind of mental status? So when we talk about the concept of atheism, crime, corruption, there also ultimately the psychology is being described. How does an atheist think? How does the criminal think? How does the corrupt person think? So those things are given so that we can be aware that this is the wrong thinking process. So we'll discuss that tomorrow. So any question before we end?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, like you said, that Gita is mostly about the right mental attitude and the right mental psychology. What are some of the daily practical, things that we can do to be in that right mental frame? How to develop uh, that thing?
Okay. So you have attended all the previous sessions.
Yes.
So we have discussed these concepts of you know self-control, mind control, dhyan, so that we can elevate ourselves from the turbulence of mind and body, right? So that is all
Yes.
about the right psychology, right? So if you are able to all these things, where you talk about anger, envy, hatred, uh, lack of cleanliness, uh, lying, deceit, all these negative qualities that we are discussing here. So how does it originate? Ultimately, it originates because we have certain attachment towards our own mind and body. We want to gratify ourselves. We are trying to do wrong things just for our two things, body and mind. So if we, for example, if we are doing, say, if we are having too much conceit and ego, we will be talking to others harshly. We will be looking down upon others. We will be having too much pride, and our dealings with the people who are junior to us will be too harsh. So that is again coming because we are having certain higher notion. We are having some notion of pride and ego in our mind. So we are trying to gratify our mind. So ultimately, we are not having control. We are losing control on our own mental process. We are basically falling prey to our own ego and conceit. So if we have good control on our mind, we will be careful that okay, let me not be too egoistic. He is also an individual before me. He also deserves equal amount of respect. Let me deal with him properly. So if we have good control on our mind, our dealings with others will also be better, more sensitive, more I would say humane, more compassionate. So this comes if we practice mindfulness, if we practice self-control. Even if a person is doing bad things to us or saying something bad, rather than getting agitated, irritated immediately and reacting, we will be compassionate. We will understand that okay, maybe because of some reason that person is behaving in a negative way. Maybe there is a way out of it. Maybe I can talk to him. I can, basically try to uh, correct his understanding. So rather than getting angry, agitated, and hateful towards others, we will try to take some corrective measures, which may be good for us, may be good for others. So that is going to happen if we have better control on ourselves. If we lose control, the moment we see that the person is saying negative things and we get so agitated and angry that we end up saying bad things and spoiling our relation forever, and so that it never becomes repairable. So that is going to ultimately damage the whole thing. So that is what is being discussed in small, small things. Also, ultimately, if we have practiced this concept of yoga, practice this concept of mindfulness and self control, we will be able to cultivate all these divine qualities automatically, and the demoniac qualities will go away automatically. Is that okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question? Okay. So if we don't have any question, we can end and let us meet tomorrow. I hope I can cover some of these interesting verses related to crime, corruption, etc. tomorrow. So it is very surprising that you see that some of these verses are revealing the criminal psychology so accurately that is very true in today's scenario also. There's nothing very ancient or valid only in the old ages. So whatever is being said, it is very, very true, to the point, exactly. You will see that, okay, this happens right today. Means in our society, the same thing happens currently. So that core psychology of crime, of criminality, of corruption is being discussed very precisely, which remains as it is, like it was there in older ages. Today also the same thing happens. So that is also supposed to be covered in tomorrow's session. Let us discuss that, and understanding these things just helps us in basically saving ourselves from those negative things. We should be watchful that, okay, we should not fall prey into such attitude. That is the main object. Okay, so let us end today's discussion. Let us meet tomorrow.